welcome back to the Champaign County History Museum Meet the Museum series. I'm Kenneth Murphy, the social media intern, and today I'm here with Mary Butzow. How are you doing today, Mary?
I'm doing fine, Kenneth.
All right, let's get started. So give us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up?
I grew up on a farm northwest of St. Joseph, and for people who grew up around that area, I lived across the field from Schaff Implement Company. A lot of people know where that is. So it was family farm. The farm had been in the family since 1906, so it is a centennial farm.
What did you do before retirement?
Oh, I'm a registered nurse. I started at Burnham Hospital in 1974 as a new graduate, and I worked mostly in emergency. In the trauma center. I was a trauma nurse coordinator for a while, and then I got into emergency medical services and stayed with Burnham when it merged with Mercy to become Covenant, and then we became Provena, and then we became Presence, and I just went from merger to merger. And when I retired, I was teaching paramedics and EMTs with Pro Ambulance, and I was affiliate faculty at Parkland College.
Thank you. So what can you tell us about being an RN in Champaign-Urbana? How did you get involved with your community? How did you kind of learn to love this area?
Well, I grew up in this area, so there's a lot of love there. And the people who worked at Burnham kind of had a very tight relationship. It was more like family than a business. And so even today we have our own Facebook page. Employees of Burnham Hospital, we do a lot of things together. And when we opened the exhibit about the Burnham School of Nursing, I just contacted my Facebook friends from Burnham, and that was our crowd of people who came to the opening reception. So part of it was Burnham was the city hospital, so people knew it. And so I was very involved with the community that way. I also, because I was an EMS educator, one of my jobs was to go to the small town fire departments and do education, sometimes as frequently as once a month. So I've got to places like Homer and Ogden and Rantoul and Ludlow, and just a lot of places around the county. So I know a lot of firefighters in the county because of that. So yeah, a lot of community outreach, not in Champaign-Urbana some, but also out in the county.
Okay. And how did you get started volunteering here at the museum?
When I retired, I decided I didn't want to take care of patients anymore. And I really wanted to get out of that and do something different. And my dad was a big history buff, and my father-in-law, my husband's father, was a big history buff. So it was kind of a natural thing to be looking at. And then Delora Siebert, one of the board members, is a friend of my husband's from high school, and she said, well, come on and volunteer. Unfortunately, we decided to start volunteering in the middle of the pandemic, so there really wasn't much to do. At first, we did a lot of sorting and cleaning out boxes and stuff like that. But then by the time the pandemic was over, we were pretty well oriented to the building and ready to get started.
And what committees are you on currently, and what are some of your responsibilities?
The committee I have the greatest heart with is one that I started with the help of Connor Monson, who is the previous director, and it's called the Champaign County Digital Newspaper Initiative. When I was growing up, the weekly paper in St. Joseph was the St. Joseph Record, and it had started in 1894. And it went out of business in 1980 when the last editors, Bob and Barbara Butler, retired. Well, Bob and Barbara Butler's daughter is Jean, who's my best friend from childhood. And Jean said she would love to have the papers digital so she could read them because she doesn't live here anymore. She lives in Denver. So I talked to Connor, and he told me how much it would cost, and we looked at the condition of the microfilm that's at the Champaign County Archives at the Urbana Free Library. And we decided that the best way to do this would be to have a committee that's an offshoot of the museum so that funds could be collected by the museum and not by me, so that we could raise enough money to start doing it. So we made we have a committee that's made up of Jean and I, the two hometown kids, and Connor and Will Best. and then a guy named Will Schlock, who's from the Illinois Digital Newspaper Collection at the U of I, and Sarah Bennett from the archives, and Perry Morris and Alan Arnold from the board. And so we started raising money to get the 1970s and part of the 1960s. We decided to digitize those first because the people my age, that's when we were in the paper. That's when we were kids. And people wanted to see their old Little League scores. They wanted to see what they were doing in high school. They wanted to see their, anytime they were in a concert, 4-H clubs, all sorts of stuff are in this paper. So between November of 2022 and November of 2023, we managed to raise about $7,700, which was enough to do 1962 through 1980, and it is currently available on the Illinois Digital Newspaper Collection. So now we're raising money for 1940 to 1962, which would cover the World War II years. And we've applied for 2 grants, and the plan is when we get a grant, that would mean I don't have to shake the trees for money as much as I've been doing, and so we're kind of waiting around to see what happens with the grants right now. I would love to have enough grant money to go all the way back to 1894 and have the whole project done, and then the Cindy committee, the Champaign County, the museum committee could move to the next town. We could do another small town, because it's a very rewarding experience to check your own history and then to share it with other people.
And how long does this process take?
What the
digitize?
Well,
Yeah.
it depends on when the money comes in, because it's 60 cents a page, and they published about between 8 and 16 pages a week. So it takes money to do it, and like I said, $7,700 covered 18 years. So to get back to 1894, granted the papers were smaller then, we're thinking it's going to cost about $20,000. So depending on if the grants come in, it could take anywhere from 2 to 5 years to get the whole project done. The other committee I'm on is it started out as the Trivia Night Committee, and it's kind of exploded. It is now the Events and Advancement Committee, and I volunteered to take notes, because I'm kind of a hyper person anyway. So I do the minutes and the notes and send reminders, and so I'm kind of the recording secretary for that.
Yes, and you bring Jell-O.
And I bring Jell-O. Now that's a whole nother story.
How did you get that idea?
Lindsay Andrews and I were talking about how cookbooks and women would raise money in the 50s and 60s in different organizations like church groups and ladies clubs and stuff by writing cookbooks, and a huge section of this would be Jell-O. Jell-O salads, what they called salads, or Jell-O desserts. And being a child of the 50s and 60s, I ate a lot of Jell-O as a kid, and my mother was very creative with it. So Lindsay said she didn't have a lot of experience with Jell-O. She's quite a bit younger than I am, and she didn't know much about Jell-O. So I said, well, I'll just start bringing some, and you can tell me which kind you like. So I think I started doing this in April. Whenever we have a committee meeting, I bring a different kind of Jell-O, and we kind of have opinions about whether it's any good or not. The opinion I really look forward to hearing is from one of our interns named Philo, who's from China, who had never had Jell-O before. And I really enjoy her opinion on whether it's too sweet or tart or what's in it and that kind of stuff. So we're getting a little adventuresome with it, with creative Jell-Os, and they've gotten to be kind of a joke among the group. The baby boomers love them. The millennials, nah, not so much.
You kind of mentioned that it used to be the trivia committee, and we have our annual trivia night coming up soon.
We do it twice a year.
Yes.
This is the summer one, and then we do one in February. So the summer one's coming up. Yeah.
What can we expect from the Events and Advancement Committee for trivia night?
Well, we have collected quite a few really good door prizes. We have some new door prizes we hadn't had before. One is for the through the rock climbing place, and now I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, we've got passes for rock climbing, which would be a nice family prize. We have a door prize that's for a family pass to the planetarium at Parkland, which is a nice family prize, and some tickets to the Virginia Theater for a live performance. We also collect door prizes for food at restaurants, so that the winning teams usually get baskets of gift cards as their reward. What else can you expect? It will be a little crazy and a little noisy. The questions were all put together by the committee, and most of the committee have hair this color, so some of the questions kind of fit the baby boomers a little more, but we're trying very hard to go into the 90s and the 2000s and kind of spread our wings a little bit with that. But there will also be 2 categories that are strictly Champaign County categories. So if you're from here or you have traveled outside of the city and around the county, you'll do quite well with those.
So what is happening with your Aunt Esther for trivia night?
My dad's sister is Esther Waters Marin, and she turned 100 years old on July 7th this year. So she's 100 years old, and she has her own team, and she has been to every trivia night we've had since we started them back up. And she won the first time, her team won the first time, and she's a very competitive, she's not a sweet old lady at all, she's very competitive, and she wants to win. So she, I think she's padding her committee with her team with very smart people this time, because she really wants to win.
Well, that should be exciting. Yes. So last Thursday, 2 Thursdays ago, we had our member appreciation night here at the museum, called Night at the Museum. And we had a special guest. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, in the movie Night at the Museum, when it gets dark, the displays come alive. And the committee thought it would be nice if something in the museum came to life. So, being a little nuts, I said that I would volunteer to do something. So we are sitting in the traction exhibit, and the traction, when I was growing up, was known as the interurban train. And I remember stories of my mother and her family that lived in St. Joseph taking the interurban train both to Champaign and Danville to go shopping. So I said that I would be my grandmother, my mother's mother, Mrs. E.L. Rudisell, would ride the interurban train on July 11th, 1950, to go to Robeson's to buy a new hat and somehow end up at the museum. So my Aunt Esther loaned me a brown suit, summer suit, and I have a pair of gloves from the museum collection. And actually I have my grandmother's shoes, which were a little bit small on me. And I put together a hat, and Yvonne Hammer loaned me a purse, and I was my grandmother for the evening. And I tell you that what they wore in the 50s is a lot hotter. It was very warm.
Yes. Well, we had over 50 guests, so the museum was pretty packed.
And what was fun was everybody, they didn't want to talk about the interurban train or the traction train. They wanted to talk about going to Robeson's.
Yes.
That's what everybody wanted to talk about, which was fine because I know all about Robeson's. I used to go shopping there all the time.
Okay. All right. So what other projects are you working on? Something about a diary? Can you give us a little bit about that?
My brother has the handwritten diaries that were done by my father's parents, and he gave me my grandfather Waters' 1945-1946 diary. And it's interesting because in January 1, 1945, my father was on a destroyer in the Pacific in the Navy, and his sister Esther, my Aunt Esther, was finishing nursing school in Chicago, and their little sister was going to Illinois State University in Normal. So my grandparents were empty nesters. So it's kind of fun to see what they did because there was no television, gas was rationed. So sometimes he'd say, ran out of gas, but that's because you couldn't get it because of the war effort. He makes editorial comments about the war, and he played a lot of cards. He belonged to a lot of lodges, and he played cards 3 or 4 nights a week. And And if he won, he put the scores in. He's definitely Esther's father. If he won, he put the scores in. If he didn't, he just said it was a bad night and he didn't win anything. He played pinochle and euchre and bridge were the big games. So it's kind of fun. And it's interesting that the baseball team he followed in the summer was the African American team. And he would, on Sunday afternoons, go watch them play. So it's really interesting. He died when I was 8, so I didn't know him very well, and so it's been a real eye-opener about, he was really funny, and a lot of really interesting historical things were in the diaries.
And we also have our popcorn wagon.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, what it's been doing, what it takes to maintain it, keep it running?
Well, the popcorn wagon is Alan Arnold's baby, so I help. And the popcorn wagon is a 1912 popcorn wagon, and it's sitting on a 1920 popcorn wagon that's sitting on a younger chassis, like a 1940s chassis. And it runs, and the popcorn apparatus has been newly refurbished, newly replaced. And it makes a lot of people really happy, because this is the popcorn truck that sat on Main Street and Neal Street when I was a kid, and you would buy popcorn when you were in town with your grandparents. So once we start popping corn and people smell it, everybody wants some. It's just really magnetic the way it brings people in. It's a very hot job. You get really warm in there, and so we rotate people out every half hour to 45 minutes, and we have different jobs. You can be in the popcorn wagon actually popping corn. You can be handing it out. You can be taking money. You can be resupplying salt, the salt table, and that kind of stuff. So it takes a lot of people, and it's also a lot of fun. It's a good teamwork, good team builder. Yeah.
And yeah, we'll be at the Champaign Throwdown, right?
The Street Fest.
Street Fest. What did it used to be called?
Downtown Throwdown.
Okay. Champaign Downtown Throwdown on August 3rd, so you can come find us there. You can come find us at Trivia Night on August 16th. And is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, come see the museum, particularly if you haven't been here before. It's a lovely building. We have interesting exhibits, and you always find somebody to talk to. So it's an interesting place to be.
Well, thank you, Mary, for being here.
You're very welcome.
Today. And thank you for watching. Head over to watch more from the Meet the Museum series, and we'll see you next time.